Hey guys, well, it is raining out again. So I figured I might as well just pop on here quick and go over my notes for the 5 biggest mistakes made starting seeds. So I'm just going to jump right into it. 1 is starting your seeds too early. You might have the room to start them now in small little seed starting kits, but do you have the room when you have to up pot them because it's not quite time to put them outside? That seems to be something that a lot of people struggle with, and right now that's what I'm assessing in the house is, okay, I have a lot I want to get started, and I have the seed starter box that can hold 72 seeds. But it's the middle of February, close to the end of February, and we still have all of March and part of April. I mean, our last frost date is not until April 12th here, where I'm located. So, how many of these seeds do I need to really start right now? And like tomatoes, I could start tomatoes right now, but in a couple weeks when they germinate, then they have to be up potted because the 72 cell trays I have, which I didn't pull one out, are only an inch, square inch, 1 square inch. Tomatoes are going to need a lot more than 1 square inch to grow. So, same way with peppers. So you really have to think about that before you start seeds. Don't start them too soon. My suggestion is ask Mr. Google Pants, when is your last frost date? Check on the back of your seeds package to see how long it takes for them to germinate, and then count backwards to see when is it safe to start the seeds. A lot of seeds are different. Each seed can vary. So you definitely have to do your research and check on that. It's for us here, it's usually 4 to 6 weeks before our last frost date is when we start a lot of our seeds. And since we have a lot of rain and I no longer have the shade tent, there's some other things that I have to take into consideration. Because once you start them inside, you're going to have to cold stratify them. And so, or cold stratify. No, you're going to have to, you have to do what I call is the inside-outside method. Where once you start them inside and you get ready to put them outside, it takes time. You can't just take them from inside and throw them outside and expect them to live. That's just not going to work. Okay, number 2 is heat. You need to make sure you have proper heat. So if you're starting seeds in your garage or in your basement, is it warm enough there, or does it get cold, and could it possibly freeze? Because if you're starting seeds and then it freezes, you've just defeated the whole purpose of all that hard work. So you really want to check on that. You don't want things to freeze once you've started them. And a lot of seeds cannot handle the cold, freezing temperatures. There are certain ones which you can, which is what I was just saying, cold stratify, which I don't think that's the right word, but yeah, cold stratification. But there are a lot of them you can't cold stratify. And once you start them, you can't stick them outside or let them get cold. So that's very important. Do you have a warm enough place for your seeds to germinate? On the back of the seed package, again, it tells you what the temperature is that seed requires in order to germinate and how long it takes. So make sure you're checking your seed packs. There are some seeds that need more heat than others, like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, cucumbers. they need warm temperatures in order to germinate. Some people even use heat mats to get these seeds started, along with your summer crops. Hence the reason that they're called summer crops, because they need the heat in order to germinate. Okay. Peppers and tomatoes, for instance, definitely need heat. That's a summer crop. With my grow tower this year and the grow tower I got last year, it came with a heat mat. I've never used a heat mat, so I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work out. And again, once you start those peppers and those tomatoes, I mean, I could start them right now. But when it starts to germinate, you can't, they start getting root bound. What am I going to do with them? You have to up pot them, because they need room to grow. Their roots need room. And honestly, if you've ever been in my house or you've watched tours and updates of me walking through the house, you'll know that room is something that there isn't much of in this house. We are very crammed and tight. So it's not something that I've been able to figure out that yet, and that's why I still haven't started seeds. Let's see. If you don't have a heat mat, you could improvise by placing them on the top of your refrigerator. Might take a little bit longer, but the top of your refrigerator is warmer than on the counter, or in another warm place in your home that would keep heat. And, because they need that heat. Also, remember that they're going to need light. And that's our third one. That brings us to the third one. You got to have them in a warm place. And then once they get started, then you're going to have that neat light. They need sun in order to grow. Light. So number 3, light. Not having enough light could be really bad for you and your seeds, because if you don't have the light, then they're not going to grow. And so once they start to germinate and they come up, they're going to reach wherever the brightest light is, which is going to cause them to be leggy, which means long and crooked. And they're going to reach for the light, and you don't want that. That's not good for them. That's not healthy for your plants. There's no grow light out there that's more powerful than the sun. So once they germinate, maybe put them in a windowsill. The best is if you have a south-facing window that gets 6 to 8 hours of full sun every day. That's the best place to put them. Or maybe on a shelf in front of a window. Like I've got, the sun shines in my kitchen window, and that's why I have a bunch of them. I put a bunch of my plants on the kitchen table, because they get a lot of sun there. And then I do have an older lamp. It's a sunlight thingy, but I've had it for like forever. And so now when I moved my orchids over to the shelf, they actually started improving, and now all of a sudden they're all wanting to bloom again, which is great. But, it shows you that your lights will diminish after time. If you don't have a greenhouse, that's okay. As long as your plants get full sun, you can grow them pretty much anywhere. But if you don't have, if you don't have enough sun, they're not going to grow. Okay, you can get grow lights. Here's the thing with grow lights. If you're going to get grow lights, you don't have to have anything expensive. And if you're looking online for a grow light and you look up grow light, you're going to get nailed with prices because of the words grow light. It doesn't actually have to say grow light on it. You get charged for those words. You can get a simple one of those simple halogen lights like what they used to have in the schools. I don't know if they do anymore. I ain't been in a school in forever. Or you can go, the light I got is just a broad spectrum light from, I don't remember where I got that one. If I got it from Home Depot or Lowe's, I don't remember. We just picked it up somewhere. But here's the thing with it, okay? The important thing is to look at the box or look at the specs if you're ordering online for what they call lumens and Kelvin, okay? Lumens is spelled Lumens, and Kelvin is Kelvin. You want the number of lumens to be between 15 to 2000. That's the intensity of the light. The brightest, that's the brightest of, the brightness of the light itself. You want your Kelvin to be between 4,500 and 6,500. And that's the color temperature. Kind of like a color spectrum of the sun. The sun does have different colors. For instance, with strawberries. Strawberries need a higher red and green spectrum than, say, a tomato. Okay, it's real funny, and it's a lot of research that I've done to understand some of this, and that's why I'm putting this down just tips and points so that you have at least an idea as to what you're looking for, okay? Daylight is another way that the box might say daylight instead of Kelvin, okay? Daylight is the number you want that it says on the label for your Kelvin. That's okay. It doesn't have to actually say Kelvin. As long as your lumens are between 1,500 and 2,000, and your Kelvin is between 4,500 to 6,500, or daylight, that's what you want. That's the best thing. Okay? And also remember, when you're starting your seedlings, as soon as they start to germinate, you're going to want that light pretty much as close to your seedlings as possible. You don't want them laying on top of your seedlings. You want that light to be about 2 inches from the top of the seedlings. And then as the seedlings grow, of course, you raise up the light, or, you can stick your seed tray on books or boxes or something so it's up against the light, up by the light. And then as they grow, you lower the seeds down just so you have enough space, but they're still getting enough of that light. Okay? Number 4, babying them too much. There is a such thing as babying them too much. Okay? And what that means is that, you got to think about it like when they're outside and they're growing. You don't want to put them straight outside when you start them inside, because you're going to traumatize them. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that they are getting the same kinds of situations as outside. You have to simulate the outdoors. Number 1 is use a small little fan. A little oscillating fan that's on low or just blows from time to time so that your seeds, when your plants start to grow, your seedlings start to grow, that you'll see that they sway, just like outside. With me, and when I start my seedlings, even when I'm doing my microgreens, because we don't have a fan in the house. So, and I walk past the plants all the time. So, when I do it, I'll just go and I'll rub my hands over them. I'm not pushing down on them. I'm just gently making them move and gives them some strength. Kind of like the wind or the breeze. You know, they need a little bit of circulating air. That also prevents from having any mildew or fungus or anything on the top of your soil. You don't want that green stuff to start growing. So they do need the air. That breeze or that air helps strengthen them. It strengthens their stem, it strengthens their roots, and gives them a good, solid start. So that way you know that they're going to do better once you do put them outside. But again, we'll get to that in a minute, but you're not going to just put them outside. You're going to take care of them inside, make sure they have plenty of air, plenty of sun. Next thing we're going to talk about is the water. Okay? You want them, don't be fancy about it, but don't baby them and not give them that little bit of air. Okay? Next is the water. You don't want to drown them, but you don't want them to dry out completely or they're still going to die. So water is a very important thing. It's also one of the, what I think is one of the most difficult things to actually master. It's going to take time to get used to all of these things. So don't feel bad if you don't get it the first time and you drown something or you forget to water it. The best thing to do is to water from below, water from the bottom. A lot of the seed starting trays that you get these days have a bottom water tray where you put the water on the bottom, the soil will wick it up, and then of course, once the soil is wicked it up for for a little bit, then you dump the excess water and let them be. Because again, when you're watering from the top, that could keep them too wet. It could cause a number of problems: fungus, gnats, mold, mildew, the green slimy stuff, etc. Oodles of numbers of different problems. And that's not what we're shooting for. Okay? And then, of course, if you're watering from the top, also, you don't want the backsplash or the dampness on the leaves. That could cause other problems like bacteria, could cause blight, could cause rust, mildew, mold, sun scald. If the sun shines on that leaf after it's been splashed with water, then it's going to get sun scald, So there's a lot to worry about, but it's really not that difficult. I know it sounds difficult. I know a lot of people make it sound difficult, but there's a learning curve, and you will get the hang of it. It just takes time, patience, understanding, and trial and error. And if it doesn't work out the first time, okay, learn from what happened and move on and do it again. Don't just give up because something didn't work. A lot of people say, oh, I have a black thumb. No, you don't have a black thumb. It's that you gave up before you actually put in enough effort and work to figure it out to make it work for you. And in each place, each state, each country, your situations are all going to vary. We lived in Illinois where we had black soil. Now we live in Tennessee where they have clay. So it was a huge learning curve for me, going from back home to here and then starting all over and trying to grow everything. It still is a bit of a struggle. But we've got the grow towers now. I've got pots. I'm figuring things out, learning about some of the other parasites and pests that are down here. So, it's a learning curve, and nobody's perfect. So don't think that if you fail the first time that you have a black thumb. And if you succeed, fantastic. Share that information with someone else. Put it in here in the comments how you succeeded. I'd love to hear your stories. Maybe even some of your bad stories. First time you grew something and you drowned it. Well, That's okay. That's how we learn. We learn from everybody else and we learn from ourselves. And that's the biggest thing. So just don't let them stand in the water. You know, you don't want to put the water in the bottom of the tray and leave them there and forget them. The soil will wick up enough water in, I'd say, maybe 5-10 minutes, and then drain the rest of it. I usually put it back in a bucket and then I use it the next time. Not everybody does that, but not everybody's like me, and I take my chances. Sometimes doing that, you might get other problems too. But, you know, I haven't grown a lot of things inside. I usually grow everything outside in their pots. I just directly sow everything. That's what I've done in the past. This year, I'm hoping to try a few other things because I'd like to get a head start on a couple of things. And I want to try to succession plant so that we're always harvesting something. With as long of a as long of a warm season we have and growing season we have here, you know, I want to try and get more grown and boost our harvest. So, and don't worry about them not growing right from watering from below. When you water from below, the soil's going to soak up, it's going to soak up all the water. You're going to dump the excess. You're going to stick them back in that seed tray. And as the water starts to drain or the soil starts to dry, those roots are going to reach for that moisture. They're going to reach down and search for the water because plants need water to grow. So it's okay. That's what they're supposed to do. Excuse me. Okay, let's see. Yeah, they stretch to reach for the water and that strengthens their roots. So I say once a week or once every couple of days, check the soil depending on the size of your seed starting trays. If it's an inch, like what I've got, just 1 square inch, those you're going to check a little bit more often because there's less soil in there. If you have something that's a bigger pot, the bigger the pot or the bigger the seed starting, the square that you're putting it in, whatever compartment or pot or what have you, container that you're putting that seed in with that soil, the bigger the pot, the more moisture it's going to hold. But you don't want to start it in a ginormous pot and then just not water it because that's not going to work either. But you don't want it to hold all that moisture in the center where your seed is, and then you're going to have it rot or it just won't germinate. It'll drown. So it's important to know how to start your seeds, and that's why I'm doing this pretty much. Just to explain a couple of things so that you're more aware of it. And I mean, I've watched a bunch of YouTube videos who have taught me these things and have encouraged me to give it a try and not just give up. Okay? So, let's see. Then hardening them off. That's what I was talking about when I said you can't just stick them outside. That's not going to work. Once they started to germinate and your last frost date has passed, then you're going to do what they call harden them off. And that's because, again, you can't just put them out there. They're not used to that. They're not used to the air. They're not used to the sun. They're not used to the different temperatures. So it's the in and out game, I call it. Hardening them off. After all your hard work gets over with, the last thing you want to do is stick them outside and have them get ruined. So, let's see here. You gotta harden them off. It's kind of like, the first day of summer when it's nice and warm out, you don't go outside in your bathing suit without sunscreen because you'll get sunburn. It's the same way with your plants. You do have to tend to them a little bit. Okay, so since they've been inside all this time, now you have to gradually put them out. So the first day you check your temperatures, your weather. Check your weather channel and see what it's like. Okay? Look and see what's the next 4 to 7 day forecast. You're going to take them, and the first day, you're going to take them outside. You're going to put them outside in the shade for, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 hours, just for a couple of hours, and then bring them back in. The next day, you're going to take them out, and you're going to put them in the shade for, say, 2 or 3 hours. And then you're going to bring them back in. Okay? The next day, and I wrote this down in, let's see. The next day, you're going to put them outside in a partially sunny area. So, not full sun, but not full shade. And you're going to leave them out there for maybe 3 or 4 hours. The next day, you're going to put them out there in the partial sun for maybe 4 or 5 hours. And then bring them back in. You're not leaving them outside overnight, because your night temperatures are still going to drop and it's still going to get chilly, and they're not used to that. They're used to the steady temperatures in your home. So you got to, and this sometimes this can take like 7 or 8 days. You know, after the 5th or 6th day you put them out there and they've been in the partial sun, then the next day you can stick them outside and put them in the full sun. And maybe leave them out there for 6 or 7 hours. And then bring them back in. Or, and maybe you want to just put them in a place where, you know, the 4th or 5th day, you want to put them in a place where they get a little bit of sun and a little bit of shade. And get them acclimated that way, so that they get used to it. And then by the 8th or 9th day, then you're going to stick them out there in the sun, and you're going to leave them out there overnight and see how they do. If they still look like they might need a little bit more time, then you're going to keep doing the in and out game until you feel like they're okay. If they start to get a little, like, when you go put them outside in the sun and say, first day you put them out in that direct sun, day 5, 6, maybe even 7, and maybe they start to get a little droopy, then you're going to want to bring them back in. You're not going to leave them out there overnight. But if they're not looking droopy and they're looking pretty good and everything, they've been in and out and in and out and in and out for almost a week. They've been out there during the day, all day long, after work. You come home, you check on them, they're looking good. Then leave them out overnight. First thing in the morning, check on them, see how they're doing. And again, don't forget to water them. You have to make sure, especially because now they're going outside. So you're going to want to make sure that even though you're playing the in and out game, you're not forgetting to water them. They'll have adequate sun, but they're going to have that water. And if you're starting, note that I didn't say earlier, if you're starting your seeds on a heat mat, as soon as your seeds start to germinate and poke their heads out of that soil, take them off the mat. Don't leave them on the mat. You'll cook them. You don't want to cook them. You're not going to burn them from underneath. You just give them enough heat so that they start to grow. They're germinated. They're poking their little heads out of the soil, and they should be all right. If you don't have the time to harden them off for a week, in and out, then do it the lazy man's way. Look at your forecast and see when is there maybe 3-4 days of overcast. See when that is, and then you set them outside when you go to work, and it's overcast, so they're not going to get too much sun, but they're not going to get no sun. You set them out there when you go to work, you bring them in when you come home. And you do that for 3 days, possibly 4 days, and then you just leave them out there wherever they're at. But make sure you're bringing them back in, okay? Just so that way they get that hardening off and they're not shocked and traumatized. If you just throw them outside afterwards, then they're going to go through shock, and that could stunt their growth. That could stop them from growing. That could stop them from thriving, and you could possibly end up with a dead plant. And nobody wants a dead plant. You're not going to do all this work just to get a dead plant. You're striving to get success, to grow something. So then at the end of the season, when it's ready to harvest, you harvest it and you have something to show for all that hard work. So those are my notes for the top 5 things, 5 mistakes that most people make. So, I hope that was helpful for you. Okay, so now that I got the dogs calmed down. So basically that's the 5 different biggest mistakes that most people make starting seeds. Like I said, I've only started a couple in the house, never with a heat mat or anything. So this is going to be another learning lesson for me. But I would encourage you to not give up and give it a try. So I hope that this was maybe helpful for you. You enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Remember, you are someone. You do matter. I love you. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Until then, ciao now.